Hey guys, it's Miharu, and welcome back to SpyroCast. This is episode 30. We have done 30 episodes of this. Awesome. I can't believe that I actually got to this point. But today, I have a special guest. You may know her as the artist who did that amazingly cute picture of Miharu in the Spyro hoodie, MelTheHoneybee.
Hello! Oh my gosh, you think my style's amazingly cute? Thank you.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm here to give you all the latest, greatest Fortnite tips, so just be ready for that.
Yep. This is a Fortnite cast, if you didn't know, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Who's Spyro?
I don't know.
Yeah,
you know what? It seems like the people who come on just don't even know who Spyro is anymore, so...
Yeah, it's just kind of a free-for-all at this point.
So, please introduce yourself. What do you do?
Yeah, so my name is MelTheHoneybee. Mel is short for Melissa, in case you were wondering. So I, as you said, I did the art for the hoodie, Miharu and the hoodie, or rather. I also have done a lot of artwork for people like Canadian Guy A, as well as other various YouTubers who aren't necessarily related to our circle of Spyro and Crash, sort of thing, but... I do a lot of artwork for people like that. Artwork is what I really, really want to do full time. Right now, it's just a little bit out of my league. I still work in an office, but I love to do artwork on the side. I'm an avid video game lover, and I'm just really excited to be here. This is something that I've never done, and it's super fun to always talk about Spyro, so thank you for having me.
No problem. And my first question is, what is your history with Spyro?
Oh, that's a good question. So, I'm gonna really date myself here. I remember playing the first Spyro when it came out, but I never actually owned a copy. So I did grow up with my PlayStation. I played a lot of Crash Warped, Toy Story 2, that sort of thing. But my cousin was the one that actually owned Spyro, and I always knew her as being the person that had all the really, really cool games that I never really could get my hands on, so...
It's always a cousin, isn't it?
It always is. It's a cousin or it's a neighbor. It's one of those two. So I would play a lot of Spyro with her, but it was always just little bits. But the things that stood out to me were the visuals, and I always had an affinity for anything fantasy, especially dragons. So I remember when Spyro 2 came out, I was probably 5 or 6 at the time, and I went to, it was like Target, Walmart, one of those generic stores. And do you remember, God, this is really dating myself. Do you remember when they had like the TVs up top and the controllers down below and you could just like play a sample of a game?
Yes, that's like one of those game kiosk kind of things.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So my dad plopped me in front of one of those while he looked around the electronics section, and it was Spyro 2, because it had just come out. So I was playing through Glimmer, and I turned to my dad, I'm like, Dad, I have to have this. I need this game right here, right now. And so because my parents had divorced, money was a little tight in my childhood. And so things like video games would only come around like birthdays or Christmas. It never happened where you would just randomly get one. And, my dad kind of shrugged. He's like, yeah, we'll see. Your birthday's coming up in a couple months, that sort of thing. And, I was a little bummed out, but it's like, whatever, that's to be expected. And when we're at the checkout, my dad puts the jewel case down on the little checkout thing, and I lost my mind. So that was the start. It was really Ripto's Rage that got me into Spyro, and it just grew from there. I mean, I've played through the original trilogy more times than I can count. It's my comfort game, hands down my favorite video game. Just in terms of replayability and things like that. So I have this deep-seated love for Spyro, and it's more than just a game for me. The way that I would play it as a kid, it was like going into a whole new world. I had a very big imagination as a child. Big surprise that I'm an artist now. So I would do things like I would play pretend in the Spyro game. So I'd like run around the worlds and I'd talk for Spyro and do these whole scenarios and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. I like that.
It's funny because part of me, I still go back into these worlds and I have like the faint memories come back of, whatever story I had made up for that world. So it's a very, very deep love for Spyro that I have. Very nostalgic, and I'm still very much connected to it with Reignited, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, that's such a nice story. I like that.
Oh, thank you.
The stories that you told about your dad. Oh, he seems like he was the coolest guy ever.
Oh, my dad was the best. He did pass away last year, but he's to blame for so much of my passions and my drive. And I couldn't have asked for a better dad. And the fact that he's the one that got me into Spyro is very, very fitting.
Yep, same with my dad, actually.
Oh,
he's the
nice.
one who got me the first Spyro game when he got me the PS1.
Oh, I love it.
Always, one of those people's just like, it looks like she'd like this, probably, so... And I did.
There you go. See, I never had that, because my dad was born in the 50s, so... His knowledge of video games...
So was my dad, actually.
Oh, snap. Are we the same person? What's going on right now?
We?
Oh my god. So, my dad grew up playing, like, the original Zelda and stuff, but he never wanted to buy me a video game that I wasn't going to be interested in. So, a lot of the games I played growing up were either my siblings had gotten them, or a cousin had them and I got interested. So, I didn't get to play a lot of variety of games when I was younger. Luckily, that's changed as I've gotten older, but it definitely was a stroke of luck with Spyro that I just happened to go to the store with him that day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really lucky the way that we both ended up playing Spyro. It's just like, you happened to be there and play that, and I happened to get that game as like my very first game for the PS1.
I love that though. That's one of my favorite things, especially listening to the previous SpyroCasts, is hearing, whether somebody got into it right when the PlayStation, was brand new, or if somebody's getting into it because of Skylanders. Every Spyro story is so wonderful and just wholesome to hear about, and I just love that part.
Yeah, it's great. So, what are your favorite and least favorite Spyro games?
Oh, man. So, okay, this is going to sound really bad, especially because I'm on SpyroCast. The main games that I have played is the original trilogy and then the Legend of series. I actually never really played any of the Game Boy games. I tried to, but, my dumb baby brain, I was like, this isn't Spyro, this is different, so...
Right.
Yeah, I never really played them. And then I tried Enter the Dragonfly, and that just turned me off from any, Spyro game that wasn't the original until it was rebooted, quote-unquote, for Legends. So, my favorite, of course, is always going to be the original trilogy. And least favorite, the Legends series, I have such a weird relationship with. As an artist, I love them. I love the Dragon Elders, Ignitus especially.
Right.
When I got those games, I was that perfect age of, I want to start exploring more edgy things, but still have it be really fantasy-based. So it was fantastic timing. So I really enjoyed them at the time I played them. It wasn't until later I realized they were kind of mediocre. But the second game, I literally have no memory of playing. None.
That's completely fine. I only have memory of playing the first 20 minutes and getting bored.
Yeah, exactly. I know that I beat it, but it was just... Oh, it was something. But with that being said, with the Reignited, I love the Reignited trilogy. However, I like the first one. The second and third one are okay to me. I'd rather play the originals of the second and third game. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my relationship with Reignited there is I've played through the first one probably 15 times. Second one, a handful of times. Third one, I'm currently on my second run through of it because that's how much I hate it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I kind of have a weird relationship with it, too. I think I play Reignited more only because it's a little more accessible to me at the moment. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I think the smoother controls kind of make it a little bit easier for me to play, which is why I think I've beaten them more times than I have the original, but I think overall I do prefer the original trilogy, because it's just, there are some things about it that were not captured in Reignited at all.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that was a huge thing I wanted to talk about. It's funny you mentioned the controls, because for the first game, yes, 100% there's an improvement. I love the fact that Spyro has kind of a little saving grace, not necessarily a hover, but you know how if you just barely miss a platform, he'll just kind of yoink up onto it and Reignited.
Little auto hover.
Yeah, and because that was my biggest issue playing the first game, when I was a kid. I got used to the hover because the second one was the main one I played, and then when I went back to the first one, when I actually owned a copy, it was really, really hard to get a hold of.
Right.
But when it comes to 2 and 3, I actually prefer the controls of the original. Maybe it's just because that's what my hands are used to when I think of Spyro, but I hate the lack of double jump, which I didn't realize was a glitch. I thought that was just a normal thing that Spyro could do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, like, I would always do the charge, like, and then do the double jump with that, and I always associated it with, you know, his normal jump and then kind of like going into his glide, but he gets a little extra momentum with his wings. I didn't realize that was unintended. So yeah, that was kind of weird for me to get used to.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I can't even pull off the double jump. I don't know how people do it so easily. I've never been able to do it properly.
Yeah, see, and it's not even like the full double jump that I can do. It's just because you know how in the original, if you're charging, if you press X twice, he'll do just like a little
yeah.
That's more what I'm talking about, because that's not in the Reignited at all. Like, he just does the one jump and that's it. And it took me a long time to get used to that. And God, I cannot stand the swimming or the flying controls. And I know I'm not alone in that, but Reignited really, really flubbed those up, because the original is just a joy to control, but now the new one, it's really, really slippy and just unresponsive.
I wouldn't say unresponsive. It does feel a little, like, faster, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And the one part that I hate the most is in Reignited, you can't, like, graze walls without absolutely just smacking your head on them.
Oh my god, I know. That, and it almost feels like you have to do the hover half a second before you would normally do it.
Right, because he actually lurches forward a little bit.
Exactly. That took me so long to get used to. But, I mean, now that I'm used to it, it's not that big of a deal. But coming from playing the originals, I literally would do a playthrough of the trilogy at least twice a year growing up. Like, that's how much I love Spyro.
Yeah.
So I just had that muscle memory, and it took a little bit to get used to the new controls. And I'm not bashing it. I love Reignited. I've played it so much. Like you said, the accessibility is the big factor, but I love the amount of love that was put into it, because the people making it were also fans of Spyro. So I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny how you would say the thing about, since you played Spyro 2 first and you got used to the hover and Spyro 1 doesn't have that, there is actually a little trick. It's a speedrunning tactic, actually, that I learned, because it's almost like the auto hover before it was the auto hover. But if you just barely make it and you charge at the end of your glide, he'll get a little extra height.
Oh my god.
And it'll actually allow you to make some jumps.
See, I love that. That's something that I adore with Spyro, is how many times have I played through it, and I'll talk to people like you or CGE, and you guys will just blow my mind with some thing that I never knew about, and I can go back and try that out. Like the other day when you were streaming and you charged through the Cat Wizard attack.
I did not know I could do that. I was, like, blown away. I was like, did I just charge through that magic? There's no way I just did that.
Yeah, and like, how many times between the two of us have we played those games, and you're still finding new ways to approach. That's why I like Spyro, I think, a little bit more than Crash, is Spyro has so many different ways you can approach a problem in the game, whereas Crash, it's just run and jump kind of thing. So I really like the fact that you can go back and still find something new. That's why I always replay Spyro, is it always feels fresh, no matter how many times I play it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really does. And it's less arcade-like than Crash is.
Exactly. I being somebody who has anxiety, going and playing Spyro is a very, very good time for me, just because it's, it still has its challenges, but it's a very, very chill time without being a baby game kind of thing. It's
oh god, you're right.
Yeah. It's so much fun. I can't sing Spyro's praises enough.
Oh, I know. Oh my god, the anxiety thing. So relatable. So relatable, honestly.
Oh yeah. It's a big one.
I mean, you should have seen me playing Super Mario World last night on Twitch.
I saw the artwork somebody did of, like, the cartridge where it's like the Miharu like, absolutely raging at Mario, and I love that.
That was me playing that. Oh my god. I was like, yeah, this is definitely a Super Nintendo game. It feels like all the other ones I had when I was a kid. I could never pass, like, level 2.
Oh, yeah. It was so funny, like, talking about how my dad was, because he'd had me play the original Zelda, and I'm like, how did you find anything? How did you do anything? And it's not a good time when I have to really, really put effort. Like, I cannot play the Souls games or, like, Bloodborne, for more than 20 minutes. Otherwise, it's just blood pressure through the roof. So
yeah, I know.
I like the more chill stuff.
Yeah. I mean, even Spyro can get frustrating, too. You saw me on that stupid Demolition Derby. It's horrible.
God. Yeah, it
is awful.
There's definitely a handful of challenges that I would hate. It was funny because growing up, I'm very close in age with my older brother, and we would trade the controller back and forth. Like, I'd do a level, he'd do a level, and we'd always fight over who does certain levels based on the challenges or based on whether we like the level or not. So I always tried to push Zephyr onto my brother and tried to get the controller when it was Metropolis, and you know, we'd fight over that, and it was the same thing with the challenges. We hated the lava lizards was the biggest bane of our existence growing up. So
right. Round 2 is absurdly difficult for some reason.
Yeah, it's just so hard because a lot of the lizards will hatch around the corner where you can't see them. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Luckily
the pattern, you cannot figure out the first time. I even have trouble with it. I'm just like, okay, I know the pattern, and then it turns out I don't.
Yeah, exactly. I still have issues with it. I think they slowed it down for Reignited, so it's a little easier. But, oh man, that original one, I can't tell you how many caveman got eaten under my watch.
Oh my god. Oh, the challenges. So many challenges. Orb or egg, it doesn't matter. They're
exactly
things that frustrate me.
What's funny is the most difficult challenge for me actually came from the first Spyro game. And maybe it's just because I didn't grow up with it, but for the longest time, I could not 100% that game. And it was one dragon.
Which one was it?
It was the Haunted Towers dragon.
Oh, Kavano? Okay.
So
yeah, that one is tough. That one's really tough.
I did not beat Spyro 1 100% until I was probably 13 or 14, and I had access to the internet through my phone, and I could just look up, how the hell do I get to this dragon? So... Because I always thought you had to go down that one room, and then there's like that little raised platform that kind of swirls up and back towards the building. I always thought that was for something, so I would go that way instead of the complete opposite direction, which is where you actually need to go. So that took me a long time to do, but at that time I had beaten 2 and 3 hundreds of times, so...
Yeah, that little wraparound area is like actually there to trick you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it got me. But I felt so accomplished when I finally did it, though. I was like, hell yeah, got that last dragon. I was so excited when I finally did that. It was the best feeling in the world.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is I didn't get to do all those crazy Spyro 1 challenges like on my own because I actually had the guidebook at the time. When I first had it, the dragon that gave me trouble was Maximos in Dry Canyon.
Oh, yeah.
I could not figure out that you had to do a blind glide, because that leaps of faith were something that just didn't occur to me as something that you could do when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So... that one, it gave me a lot of trouble, and I never finished the game, and then I had to give away my original copy for certain reasons, but then I got the game again, and then after that, I got the guidebook, so when I was playing through it, I was like, oh, that's how you do it, so I was able to get that, and then because I had the guidebook, I was able to do the treetops thing and the Haunted Towers thing without any trouble. I mean, I still had trouble, but, you know.
I honestly have no clue how I solved treetops on my own as a kid. Literally, the only dragon I could not get on my own was in Haunted Towers. And I apologize. I'm so bad with names in real life. I don't even remember all the dragon names. So every time I play, it's like a totally new playthrough, because I'm like, oh, which dragon is this again?
Right. The only reason I remember the dragon names is because, well, I played it so many times and I remember, like, their quotes and, if they're in a very specific spot and I'm like, yeah, that's that dragon, like...
Yeah.
Maximos in Dry Canyon, Jed in Treetops, and Copano in Hana Towers.
There you go. Yep. The ones that scarred us the most as children.
And, the other one. The one in Jacques, too, actually. That one was a tough one to figure out, too, where you have to flame the two fools.
Yes. Jacques is a very interesting level. It's funny because I see a lot of people hate on that level, and I'm not sure if it's just because Jacques himself is laughable as a boss or what, but I love Jacques because it's so multi-layered, and you have to approach it in so many different ways to get to where you want to go. I always really like that about it.
Yeah, I like it too. It's an interesting level for sure. And in the original, I always liked the armored, they're called armored horrors in the guidebook.
Oh yeah.
And I always thought it felt so satisfying to, like, charge them off the pedestals.
Yes, oh my god.
There's something that's really satisfying, specifically about the original. In Reignited, it doesn't feel as satisfying.
I agree 100% with that. It's funny you mentioned the armored horrors. One of the first posts that I had go, not viral, but it was pretty popular, in regards to Spyro, was when Reignited was announced. I was discussing how we're gonna have to look at all these certain enemies in high definition. It's gonna be scarring. And they were one of them, along with, like, the beasts from Magic Crafters and, the dudes in Dreamweavers that are really tall and out of proportion and stuff.
Yeah.
I love Spyro's character design. It is unlike anything else I've seen, even to this day.
Really, yeah.
But yeah, getting them charged off the platform, very, very satisfying.
Yeah, I love it. Alright, next question. Do you think we could be getting a new game soon?
I hope so. I desperately hope so. It's funny because I was reflecting on that today, Spyro 4, because when Reignited was being hyped up and it was still just a rumor, I would hold my breath for every game conference and every single time I get let down. It was to the point where my partner told me to stop getting my hopes up and just let things happen. And by the time that I officially lost hope, that's when those purple eggs were sent out. So I'm getting to that point right now where I'm losing hope we're going to get the announcement anytime soon. So here's to hoping that maybe it's like last time. But I definitely know there's going to be a Spyro 4. It's just a matter of time. The demand is there. So, especially with how Crash 4, how that went and how successful it was. I'd love nothing more than to see Spyro make a comeback in some brand new adventure in a similar vein to the originals and kind of get him back to his roots exactly how Crash did, because 4 was a fantastic game for Crash. So
yeah, it's funny, in Crash's case, we're kind of getting that right now, where we don't know what's going on, like what's happening. It's like, alright, the 25th anniversary packages were sent out, where's Wumpa League, or where's whatever, like...
That was definitely the weirdest day. I was watching that conference and I had like that nervous bubble in my stomach. I was so ready. And then nothing happened. I was just, I messaged CGE. I'm like, what? Because he was like prepping me. Yeah, he's like, are you ready to do some artwork? I'm like, hell yeah. And then nothing. So
it is so weird.
That being said, as much as I love Crash, because he was definitely a huge part of my childhood, he's getting a little too much attention. I need some stuff for Spyro.
Exactly. That's what I keep telling everybody right now, because people are saying things about, like, oh, what if the next Spyro game is like a crossover? And I'm just like, I think the last thing I want right now is for Crash to play a major role in a Spyro game.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like he'd probably end up stealing the thunder, and heaven forbid if they bring out Molotov cocktails during that crossover.
That would be funny.
That actually would be kind of funny if they acknowledged the previous crossover as like a throwaway gag. Kind of like how in Crash 4, the mask asked how many times they'd beaten Cortex, and only 3 times, and it felt like more.
Yeah.
I would love that. But yeah, I agree. Spyro needs his own standalone adventure before we have a crossover.
Absolutely. And, I mean, the same thing with, like, oh, what if the next Spyro game is kind of, like a multiverse concept? And I was like, but I don't want people saying that it's stealing from Crash 4. Like,
yeah,
anything that could be compared to Crash, it's like, I really don't want that.
That's what was so funny when Ratchet and Clank was announced, because I believe that was announced before Crash. However, I had been lucky enough to see the Crash trailer before it was officially announced. And
Yes.
when I was watching Ratchet and Clank, I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's way too similar. And that was actually something I wanted to kind of toss around, is instead of doing a multiverse thing, I would love if Spyro did a time travel adventure.
That
kind of
would
a similar
work.
vein. Yeah, similar vein to like Ocarina of Time or something. I think that would be really good and play into the fantasy elements a little bit more than multiverse would.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's funny because I talk about what elements the next Spyro game can have, and I always say things like, ooh, what if it has like little elements from Star Fox Adventures? And to a lot of people, Star Fox Adventures is very much like a Zelda game, so if it has that, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see a little bit more puzzle elements in Spyro. I think there's room for it in a game like Spyro, especially. And I'd love to see a little bit more of an open world style. Not that, I mean, Spyro is an open world, but it's still very sectional. So I'd just love to see bigger, more interactive worlds, rather than just run around, collect things. I'd love to see, like, oh, if you explore behind this waterfall, what could you find? And things that are a little bit more natural feeling that have been utilized in games in the modern era a little bit more.
Yeah. Actually, this leads into my next question, was what are some of the most important things you think a new game should have?
The biggest thing that I think Spyro needs to stick with is the layered level formula. And what I mean by that is, think of a level, trying to, like Robotica Farms.
Mm-hmm.
You'll go through the whole level. It's very straightforward, and then by the time you get to the end, you're introduced to this track that was on a totally different level. It was just above you, but it's a totally new way to explore the level. Or like Clifftown, you ascend these levels, and then you can utilize your glide and things like that to get around. So I think if they keep that formula of having the levels a little bit more contained but very layered, I definitely feel like that would be great, because Spyro being on just a one-plane style level, I don't think that's going to work for him. You have to be able to have that ability to glide and explore and feel like, oh, I wonder if people have made it over to this area. Exploration is key to Spyro.
Exactly.
100%. I definitely would like to see a return to the original color palettes. That's something that, Reignited just unfortunately did not hit the mark with me for a lot of the color palettes. Some levels they did great, like Treetops, adding that kind of ghostly green light coming out of the trees and stuff. It was great.
Oh, yeah. That's one of my favorite things, my favorite kind of lighting.
Yeah, exactly. And with the PS5 and the new lighting capabilities, I mean, I'm sure you saw the level concept that I designed where it was like bioluminescent, and I'd love to see stuff like that. And more of a play with brighter colors, because the things like Lofty Castle, so disappointing in Reignited, that they lost that nice pastel, very dreamlike sort of palette that Spyro's known for.
Yeah, it's the skyboxes in a lot of levels that were kind of where they missed the mark.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I agree. But other than that, I'm trying to think. I would love to see a return of Stuart Copeland. I know that's a long shot, especially because he only did one song for Reignited, but it's just not a Spyro game without his style of music. It would have to be him or somebody who can mimic very well. I think the only other person I would hire for the job would be like Mark Mothersbaugh, just because, you know, he did Ratchet and Clank, but he also did Thor Ragnarok. And he has that very trippy, weird style. So it would have to rely on the crazy music that Spyro's known for. It cannot be just a standard soundtrack. That's one of my deep love interests with Spyro is the music. 100%.
Yeah, it can't be generic.
Yeah.
Mark and I were actually thinking maybe Nick Tremblay, who did the music for Nitro Field, because he ended up recreating the track for Spyro Circuit, which is a remix of Mushroom Speedway, and it ended up being a way better version than the one that's actually in Reignited.
Agreed. I think he would be a fantastic choice for that. Wow, I hadn't considered that one. Yeah, it would have to be somebody in that vein. It can't be a totally new music style. If they're gonna go back to the roots of Spyro, similar to how they did with Crash, it's gotta be a similar soundtrack. No doubt in my mind. I'm very focused on the aesthetics of Spyro, for sure.
Yeah, me too. And it kind of goes back to how the first game did things. Like, the way the music should be, I think it should be, it could have, like, elements of the 2 and 3 music, but the first game's music is definitely something special.
Mm-hmm. I cannot agree more. As much as I love how atmospheric 2 and 3 can be, especially with, like Summer Forest and Winter Tundra and stuff, it's absolutely gorgeous and definitely stands out in my mind, but I find myself humming tunes from Spyro 1 way more often.
Yeah, I think they stick with you a little more just because of how iconic they are. And my favorite track in the whole trilogy is Midnight Mountain, which is from 3, of course. It's just I have a lot of memories of wanting to reach Midnight Mountain. I'm just like, oh, that sounds so cool, because I think I also had the guidebook. I looked at just the world name and I was like, oh, Midnight Mountain, that sounds so cool, I want to get there. And I finally did, and I was like, oh, it looks so beautiful. And then the music, I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
You and I really are the same person, because Midnight Mountain is my favorite homeworld and my favorite Spyro track as well. Yeah. So I feel that. I've always been really drawn to, like, nighttime aesthetics and color palettes. And
exactly.
I love Midnight Mountains, like that green and purple. Oh, it's so good. So good.
It is really, really good. The crystal aesthetic of that too, especially with, and then that goes into Crystal Islands, which is one of my favorite levels.
Oh, yeah.
The purple and the colorful crystals all around. It's just really nice.
I agree. That's another one where I prefer the original over the Reignited.
Yes.
I felt like the way they rendered crystals in Reignited was a little too plasticky. And I mean, that's kind of a huge thing that I have with the world. Somebody pointed out recently, I wish I could remember who, Watch It Be Mark or something, where the worlds really feel toy-like, and they feel sculpted out of clay. They're very...
I think I may have said that in one of my videos once.
Yeah, and it's the truth with Reignited. It's very, it's not angular. It doesn't have a lot of those textures that Spyro was known for, because when I played Spyro 1 as a kid, I was blown away, like, the textures on Spyro's back, and what they would do with it, because there were no games like that. Everything was very flat colored. And I just felt like a lot of that texture was lost in Reignited.
Right. I think when I was talking about it, I was kind of more so defending it, though, because I'm just like, well, it's not so bad. Like, I kind of like things that look toy-like, and, you know, sometimes it can look nice. I think for Spyro it works just fine, but I do prefer the aesthetic of the original, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And don't get me wrong, I still love it. It probably sounds like I'm ripping apart Reignited. It's not necessarily that. I still love the look of it. I just prefer the original.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what I say all the time, because every time I talk about Reignited, I always find something to say about it where it sounds like, oh my god, I hate this game, but I really don't. Like, I love it. It's just, I just don't like it as much as the original, and, you know, that can be said with either how things look, or how certain characters in Bianca are done, or...
I like Bianca's design, but I felt like they could have done a little bit more with her character animations.
Yep.
She's so expressive and goes through this huge journey. I definitely feel like they dropped the ball on Reignited number 3. I will complain about that game. That one I'll rip apart, but...
Yes, I can complain about it too, despite me completing it numerous times already, just because I feel like I have to now. I'm just like, oh, this is so not worth it. I really don't feel that game is worth completing at all.
No, I agree. It was painful for me to get through that. The first 2, I beat them back to back, like, within 2 days. The third one took me a couple weeks to get through, just because I experienced so many game-breaking glitches, and just... I felt bored. I was like, this is just the base of what they could have done. Whereas in Spyro 1, they really spiced it up. Like, finding the Dragon Elders in Reignited #1 was one of the greatest gaming experiences of my life. And I honestly could say Reignited #1 is my favorite Spyro game, which is wild because nobody ever says 1 is their favorite. But the way that they handled it with Reignited, it's just perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that a Reignited Spyro 1 is the definitive way to play that one. Although
Agreed.
there are some things that they didn't get quite right, and some dragon designs that I much prefer in the original, but...
Mm-hmm. Even still, though, compared to my gripes with the original first one and then my gripes with the Reignited first one, it's still no contest. As much as I miss the original color palettes and stuff, and I'll still turn on the original soundtrack. I listened to the dynamic soundtrack my first playthrough on Reignited, and then after that, I just always switched to the original. So
yeah, I keep it on that too. It's just a lot better. I don't think Reignited quite got any of the tracks exactly right.
Yeah, agreed.
Except Hurricos. I think that's actually better than the original, but this is the only one.
I'm trying to think if any of them stood out to me as being better than the original, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because the original soundtrack is just so ingrained in my brain. I love... Because I grew up with, like, Good Burger and The Amanda Show and stuff, so...
Yeah.
Stuart Copeland, like, that's just the sounds of my childhood. So anybody who tries to redo it, it's just not the same. I have to have the original tracks in the game.
Right. Oh man, that reminds me of when I was watching The Amanda Show when I was a little kid, and I heard the credits music, and I was like, that's Spyro music!
Exactly, yeah. It's that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's pointing at the screen.
Yeah.
And that was me as a child. And I honestly don't remember if it was I recognized the music when I watched the show, or I recognized the music when I played the game. I don't know which was first, but I forever associate Wizard Peak with The Amanda Show.
Yes.
Those are good times, good times.
Well, I don't have any more questions, so what can we talk about if you want to say anything else? I guess, what are your favorite and least favorite levels in the original trilogy?
Oh, least favorite levels ever, hands down. No, even a pause to think about it. I cannot stand that level.
That's fair.
Yeah, the only reason I don't like it, it's not necessarily the story. I love the story, and how it ties with, oh my gosh, Breeze Harbor. There we go.
Breeze Harbor.
But I hate how every single mission in that level, it requires some sort of backtracking. That just,
okay.
Oh god, every time I play through that, because you have to run through the level several times to do each thing, because you have the Cowlicks, which you have to go find them and then slowly escort them back. Oftentimes there's 2 Cowlicks in the same spot, so you have to run back and forth, and then you have the Magic Bean mission, which requires a little less backtracking in a contained area, but still requires, I have to spit this seed here and then go get the other seed and then come back and yada yada yada. And then not only that, but you have one of the question mark bottles that requires you to run all the way back through the level again. So I cannot stand. I could talk about my hatred for Zephyr for hours, which is funny because my first original character is named Zephyr that I ever drew. So but
I put Zephyr on my top 5 hated levels as number 5. However, I think I'm actually gonna bump that down to number 6 and put Dino Mines in the spot of number 5, because I realize I die every single time I'm in that level.
Yes. The missions in that level are very hard, especially the Agent 9 mission, so I don't blame you for that one. I like the aesthetics of Dino Mine. I like the whole dinosaur cowboy thing going on. Maybe it's just because I'm from Arizona and I'm surrounded by cowboy stuff, but I can see that being a less favorable level. Out of curiosity, what's your least favorite level?
Well, I don't have one overall. I have one from each game, and that would be from the first game, Misty Bog.
Okay.
From the second, Robotica Farms. Mm-hmm. And from the third, Lost Fleet.
Okay, yeah. We're pretty similar with our tastes. I can easily say what my least favorite level is, but favorite is really hard, and I kind of do the same thing. I do it by game, and I gotta think about that. First game, it's probably I honestly just love everything in Dreamweavers. I always rush through the first game just to get to Dreamweavers. And honestly, I think the homeworld just for Dreamweavers was always my favorite. I love the aesthetics of it, and I was always excited to go into those levels.
Yeah.
Second game, I grew up loving Metropolis just because I love the power up at the end. I've always been a sucker for flight in video games, so
that is one of my favorite challenges. It's relaxing, and like the way the power up looks, which they completely dropped the ball on that and reignited it, like with their icons for the power up, but
oh yeah,
I always loved the way it looked in the original, the fireball, like with the wings,
yes,
like flapping on the side. I was like, that is the coolest thing ever.
Agreed. And that actually makes me think about the fact that because I always, when I picture that challenge, I hear the robot voice in my head.
Spyro.
Yes, exactly. That's another thing reignited. Just I love the original voice acting so much more. It had so much more of a cartoony quality to it.
I know. So
but
great.
yeah. So anyway, Metropolis is probably my favorite in 2, along with Cloud Temple. I definitely enjoy. I like the aesthetics of those. Just basically anything in Winter Tundra. Again, that's kind of the same thing as Dreamweavers. I just love all those worlds, except for Robotica Farms. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
And 3, that's so hard. Maybe Enchanted Towers is a good one.
Yeah.
I always love the skateboarding, and again, the flight. I loved flying. The idea, it's that same thing of the layered levels, that you explore it as Spyro, and then you go and explore a totally different aspect of it as Sergeant Bird. I love that.
Oh yeah, that was so unique, and that's the reason why Enchanted Towers is my favorite level in that game.
It's so good.
Everything about it is really good. That mission with Sergeant Bird, I'm like, this is so fun. I'm flying around everywhere.
Yeah. I would spend hours just flying around as Sergeant Bird. That was one of those instances where I would play pretend, with myself while I was playing this video game. I'd fly around as Sergeant Bird and pretend it was like his first mission or his first time flying. And, I'd jump off the building, and how he catches himself before falling, through the skybox. Yeah. So I do like this whole dramatic story to myself, and I had a lot of fun in that level. And like the skateboarding, I mean, come on, what kid didn't like the skateboarding in Spyro?
I actually was not a fan, except Enchanted Towers. Enchanted Towers skate park is the only part that I actually did like the skateboarding in.
Yeah.
I didn't like it in Sunny Villa, and I never liked the races.
Oh yeah, no, I don't count the races. That Yeti race at the end, oh my god.
That sucks.
Yes,
I've only beaten it in the original once.
It's
I've only
so hard.
completed the original once.
Oh wow.
Reignited a bunch of... I've completed reignited like 5 times probably, and I've only 117%ed the original Spyro 3 once.
That's very surprising, especially considering that, because that one's your favorite game, correct?
It is.
Yeah, that's very fascinating to me. Speaking of, I do want to add in, I believe in Bianca's supremacy. She's greater than Allura. Just gonna say that. Comment section, come at me. But
yes, we got another Bianca enthusiast here.
I love her character. She's so fun, and I've always liked the whole villain turning good storyline.
Right. Yeah, I love that too.
Yeah.
As what I said about her is one of the first instances that I can remember where that was a thing. Like, not just in a video game, but in anything, really.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because that makes me think about what I want to see in Spyro 4. And I definitely want a good storyline, similar to how Spyro 3 was, but I don't want it to be too complicated. I definitely think a lot of the future generation Spyro games got out of hand because they relied way too much on story, and that's not what a platformer needs. But I think 3 was that perfect balance of story and platforming.
Yes. I think Spyro 4 should have kind of the gameplay of 1, where it's kind of just like pure platforming mostly, and then the tone of 3 overall.
Yes, and I'd love to see more world building. That's something I like in Reignited with the first game, is that they made these worlds feel very lived in. And I'd love to see more NPCs in like the overworld, because they always felt very empty to me. I'm like, where is everybody? So yeah. I'd love to see a little bit more interactivity with characters in that regard, just because all the NPCs are so charming in Spyro, and I'd love to see really more. Yeah. So I definitely love a little bit more world building, especially if it has to do with the dragons, because they always felt so disconnected from the rest of the world and very mysterious, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about them. You know, the fact that there's no female dragons, at least that we've seen so far, and how they got banished and what they were doing before they got banished. That's why I think a time travel story would be very, very good for Spyro to try out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I actually am going to tell you the reason why, despite the original Spyro 3 being my favorite game, the reason why I've completed the Reignited version more, and not just because it is more accessible and I play it a lot more often. Mm-hmm. I find even the challenges that suck, I find it kind of easier to get through them sometimes than I do in the original. Also, it's because I grew up with the Black Label version, and if you know about the glitch in which if you don't complete everything in a speedway and you exit and you go back in, it won't allow you to get the eggs that you need from the challenges.
Wow, that's interesting, because I grew up with that version as well. I guess I never ran into that, because I always like to complete levels as I go through them. I never like to leave stuff undone if I can do it all, but
that's fair, but I hate speedways, so
yeah, no, I hate speedways too, so I'd always like rush and do them first so I could save the better levels for last. But yeah, no, I had no idea that was a thing, and I don't blame you now for only completing that the one time.
Yeah. So, yeah, what had happened was I couldn't get the eggs to enter the super bonus round, so for years I had no idea what the super bonus round even looked like, and finally I was able to enter it with a cheat code and do the Yeti race, and I'm like, this is horrible. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it's... They used all the, like, really bad minigames for the super bonus round.
Did you notice they used, like, everything from Lost Fleet?
Exactly! I was just about to say that. That freaking submarine thing. God. The absolute worst. Who wants to be a dragon in a submarine? Jesus.
Like, the only one that's not from that is the flying one, which is actually the best one, and it's because it's not from Lost Fleet. But they took everything. They're just like, the dumb race and the submarine. Like, everything from the level you hate. Here you go.
Enjoy! Yeah, I was just about to say, I love the flying part. Again, I'm a huge sucker for anything that allows me to fly. Granted, not the speedways. I like free flight. But yeah, no, the minigames, dear God. I always way preferred Dragon Shores over the super bonus round.
Yeah. I think, it's, you know, people say they don't like Dragon Shores, like, well, it's just, you know, like the roller coaster. Well, I mean, the roller coaster can be sometimes annoying, but I thought it was just kind of fun to play around in. I like the fact that you could watch all the cutscenes. That was a new thing for me at the time, to watch cutscenes in a video game, actually as a reward. And, of course, the permanent super flame with the New Game Plus.
Yes.
That was a completely new thing to me at the time as well, and I find that to be the best reward in Spyro. So
agreed. I actually found that by mistake, because again, I didn't have easy access to the internet as a child, so I just found that by mistake. I had finished a game, all the other save spots were taken, so I just started a new game, and I was like, wait, why do I have the super breath? And my mind was blown as a kid. I thought that I found some sort of just absolute crazy secret, like Dead Sea Scroll level lore for Spyro. So I always really, really like that reward. I've seen so many people complain about it, and it's like, well, it's not meant for the original playthrough. It's meant to go back and explore the game now with that power-up.
Yeah, and because people say, well, it makes it like a lot easier. It's like, yeah, it makes certain things a lot easier. Like, I guess it, you don't have to do as much backtracking when you have that. But at the same time, the challenge still remains, especially in the speedways. Because if you have to hit certain things, like, Ocean Speedway, when you have to hit the, like, the boats.
Yes.
Because you don't have the spread of your flame anymore, and it goes in a straight line, it is really hard to hit those boats.
Yes, thank you. Like, so many people have pointed out the exact same thing to me. Like, oh, why even replay it if it's just going to be 10 times easier? And then it really doesn't make it any easier whatsoever. It's just an extra element of fun, and it's a new way, like I said earlier, it's a new way to approach those problems that you had, and it's a totally different way to play the game. So I always thought it was a really good reward. That's something I'd like to see for Spyro 4 as a comeback, is some sort of, whether it be a special breath ability or free flight or something as a reward for completing the game.
Yes.
But other than that, I did want to bring up one thing. The skeleton. Want to talk about the flossing.
Well, okay, so the thing about flossing is, like, people talk about stuff on the internet, and I'm just like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I had no idea what the big deal with flossing was, or dabbing, or anything like that. I'm just like, I don't care. Like, it's dumb, but I was more concerned on how Mr. Bones looked than the dance he did.
Yes. I do definitely hate that he has eyeballs. His aesthetic is one thing, but I specifically want to address the flossing, because so many people talk about that, and the whole reason it became cringy is because of the whole Fortnite thing, and heaven forbid there's a huge group of people that enjoy a thing. But what I want to point out is when we played Spyro 1, that was in the 90s. It was a little bit after, the disco craze had died down. And what did Mr. Bones do in the original? He did the Saturday Night Fever, pointing dance. Yeah. He did the cheesy stuff, the moonwalk and everything that was out of date and cringy for kids at the time. So I think it's very fitting that now he has the air horns and the flossing and stuff, because that's more relatable for kids that are playing it now as the, oh god, I can't believe he just did that dance sort of thing.
Right.
So,
yes. You're absolutely right.
This is something I don't see discussed enough, and I had to bring it up. I had it on my notes specifically to bring up the bone dance. I just could not leave this podcast until I pointed out that I support the flossing.
And that will be the title of this episode. I support the flossing.
Perfect. I love that. 10 out of 10. And that works because I was going to do the Fortnite tips at the beginning, so let's go.
Oh my god. It really all came full circle, didn't it?
It did. It really did. It's beautiful. That's what Spyro does for us. It's just all aesthetically pleasing.
But yeah, you're totally right about the out-of-date dancing. That's, it works. But because I keep the original music on, I don't have to hear that stupid I can't stand that music. I can't stand it.
It is really bad, but I have to admit it made me laugh. It really caught me off guard, especially with the air horn. I was dying. But then again,
it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I like cheese. It's funny because that's something I'm doing a video with Shemp right now about Sonic Colors, and he hates the cheese in it, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my god, give me more, please.
Oh man,
gotta love it. But thank you so much for having me. Like, this has been an absolute pleasure. I always love talking Spyro with people who love it just as much as me.
Yeah. Oh man, it's been so fun. Wow, we've been going for an hour, coming up on the hour mark. That's awesome, because we had so much to talk about, and we're practically the same person.
Yes.
Like,
I love it. It was fantastic. And this is our first time really doing a voice chat, so it's been so much fun. I genuinely enjoyed this.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have you back on the show once we get new Spyro news, like more SpyroCasts. Yes, you're definitely coming back on.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And keep an eye out, of course, especially when Spyro 4 is announced, I'm going to do all the artwork. So keep an eye out. I always post it on Twitter and Instagram under my same username, so...
Absolutely. And I'm kind of going to need some a new artwork for an upcoming video, actually. So.
Yes. I'm always happy to provide good artwork to good people.
Yes. Alright, so that's gonna do it for this SpyroCast. As always, don't forget to subscribe for more casual gaming content if you want to be on SpyroCast. I'll have a link to the application form below in the description, and I will see you next time. Until then, this is Miharu, signing off.